Hello, everyone. Welcome to Startup Grind Grand Rapids. This is a fireside chat for our February 2021 special guest today. We have Deavondre Jones, founder, CEO, artist, entrepreneur, father, college professor. What other titles did I miss out?
I think you hit them all, man.
All right. Well, really grateful for the generosity of your time today and let us know what's going on with you. Um, it's been a lot of fun getting to know you over this last year. Um, as we've connected a couple times, and I've got to hear about what you're doing. So maybe you could do us a favor and give us a nice little background on you personally.
Yeah, for sure. So, hello everyone. I'm super excited to be here. Like, incredibly excited. Hopefully, this time that we have together could be valuable to you in some way. A little bit about me and my story. I'm originally from Benton Harbor, Michigan, born and raised. If you don't know where that is, Michigan people always throw up a hand because our state is like a hand, but it's down in this southwest corner. Uh, yep, it's down in the southwest corner. Very small city. Lots of poverty. The schools that I went to were top or bottom five on the educational performance list in the state. So just giving you kind of like a context of where I grew up, I experienced homelessness. I experienced a lot of generational trauma, a lot of crime, things like that I experienced growing up. I just always happened to have a mentor or two who were able to like have access to a program, who was able to drop some really cool sayings in my ear. And I happened to get a job in my high school career where I ended up dancing for a living. So I would go into after school programs with kids and do like crowd control and also dance, right? So for me, dance kind of became this therapy for me to release my emotions, to express, to communicate everything. I am the first generation college student in my family. My mom dropped out of high school. My dad graduated high school. And so I ended up going to a community college. I had no clue what college was. I can't tell you how far behind the stick I was, honestly. But I literally showed up to college like this. Hey, how do I get in college? They said, fill out a FAFSA. I said, what is that? And then they gave me like a website address. I can't tell you how underprepared I was. Okay. But that literally gave me this obsessive drive to like figure out what it is that I didn't know. It actually became incredibly fun to figure out how much I didn't know. Like it became a game in my mind. So by the time I left GRCC, I sat on every board, every club committee, every activity. I knew all my teachers, right? That's just the type of personality I bring. And I started a company called DANCESPIRE. The goal was to be Tony Robbins, but with dance performances. And that's kind of the business model I followed for a minute. It got me a scholarship to Columbia College in Chicago. I did the same thing there, super involved. Let me find out everything. Life is still obviously uncertain. And so I'm like sleeping on couches and floors and stuff. Moving back to Grand Rapids, I got my 4-year degree from there. Moving back, I found out I had a son on the way. He's 4 now. He's one of the best human beings ever. Love being a dad. And I tried to put the business down for a minute. I was like, I need to do the big boy job. And I did. I went into marketing, finance, and got tired of it really quick. I felt like a lot of businesses were so inefficient. And I also felt like there's so many thoughts. We can dive into that later, but
Yeah.
nevertheless, and I still have those feelings today, but I decided to just work for myself. I became a Domino's delivery driver and I created what we now have here today as DanceSpire.
Now, maybe it is worth digging into some of the mindset stuff. And so it sounds like you have like a deep curiosity,
Yeah,
for people and how things work, maybe.
yes,
Um,
yes.
and where did that come from? Was that ignited somehow by someone or something?
Yeah, I think there was multiple ways. I grew up as a kid who only saw what he saw on TV. I didn't go anywhere, honestly, really. I literally went to school and back home. So no swimming, no YMCA, maybe the front yard here and there, But so I was very fascinated with like role playing, like cracking jokes and entertaining people. That's one. But then once I got into high school and I got some opportunities in the dance world to go take ballet, and it led me to a different group of people, right? I was predominantly Black people, maybe seen a few any other races within my time up to high school, right? So very sheltered in a certain way. And then I started learning other people and seeing other things. And I think my desire to become more is what led me to this idea. I had this idea early on. I was willing to do whatever it takes to build out the life that I wanted. And when I say whatever it takes, I genuinely mean that. There's a few, principles I have that I won't compromise. But outside of that, a book to read, a person to go talk to, a stranger to go walk up to, there's nothing outside the wheelhouse that I won't do to learn.
So, so coming from Benton Harbor, a bit of a small community, being certainly, segmented, siloed, segregated from other communities around it.
Yeah.
Then you're in the community college situation, and then you land in Chicago, big town.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So what's that like? Is that like kid in candy store, kind of like, oh my gosh, everything is here, this is amazing, or is it otherwise?
Yeah. Yeah, I think like there's two reactions to it. I was actually really happy I didn't go to Chicago as a freshman. So maybe like young entrepreneurs watching this should probably take some notes. But like I had friends who were like extremely overwhelmed. Like they just were like, oh my God. Well, classmates, I'll call them because I met them at college, and they were just very overwhelmed. And I had already did 2 years of college and I got that shock. I literally remember being terrified my first semester. I was sitting in the history. This is probably one of those moments that click, like you need to do work, right? I went to a history class and I remember walking in and I sat down, and the history professor asked a question. And I was like, I really don't know the answer to it. But then the guy who gave the answer, he had so much context. And I was like, holy crap, not only do I need to know what he just asked, but I need to know what he knows too. And that terrified me so much. I got an A+ in that class. I spent so many nights reading books and having extra meetings with that guy, but that literally became like the mental model for me. I was never a reader during this time we're talking about, but it wasn't until my sophomore year in community college I started to like pick up books and read. And one of the things I remember reading as well that kind of really stuck into my mind is that the winners of the 21st century won't be people who don't work hard, or won't be people who work hard, but the people who can learn, unlearn, and relearn consistently. And everything in life became either I'm learning something new, I'm relearning something, or I'm unlearning something. So even for this conversation, for me, that's my perspective. So Chicago was like literally just so much fun. I tried to go to at least 5 events per day.
That's and in a place so dense like that, like you can. I mean, I remember when I was fundraising in the Bay Area. I just landed. I didn't know anybody, so I did you, like I was just like, like as many events as I could go to. I want to be as embarrassed as possible, foot in the
Yep.
mouth all the time. And, after a while, it's just not as painful anymore.
Exactly. Exactly.
But I kind of crave that pain, that uncomfort.
Yeah.
I think some deeply curious people, like they don't really feel like they're learning if they're not uncomfortable.
Yeah, yeah. Like for me, so there's pockets, and I remember watching a TED talk that helped me understand this. But it's ignorance, and I ended up buying the book. But essentially, it's a scientist who talks about how science is not like the scientific method. It's not as clean as here's a hypothesis, test it, here's my results. It's more he describes it as searching for a black cat in a black room, where you're kind of just like you're like thinking about things. But essentially what I got out of his mental model was that there's things I know that I know. There's things that I know that I don't know. Like what you ate for lunch. I know who you are. I know that you eat, but I don't know what you ate. So I know that I don't know that. Or there's things that I don't know that I don't know. And my goal is to to do this every day because it's going to keep me entertained over here. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's totally how my mind works.
Um, now having the perspective, and now being a college professor, on the academia side, where you're, so this is like college professors are different than like high school teachers, right?
Oh, yeah.
They're different mentors. Like college professors, you're in the business of creating knowledge. Like, like
Yeah.
not just disseminating knowledge, right?
Yeah.
You're supposed to be like adding to the canon, right? That seems like a lot of like a good opportunity for someone like you, but also maybe a lot of pressure. And then this idea of unlearning a lot. how has all of this informed how you teach?
That was a great question. So from a professor standpoint, it wasn't as big of a transition as I thought. Actually, I still move too fast for academia. So that's that. So that I've taken that and that's working really well. I'm doing a great job. Students love the classes. The reviews are amazing. And they're looking to implement more of the work that I do into their whole department, which is the dance department. When it comes to how does it affect how I teach, it's affected it tremendously. Even if you see the model that we're planning for DANCESPIRE, usually in the dance world, when you're teaching dance, you kind of have this idea in the hip hop dance world that either you get it or you don't. And it's not what they mean to say, but based on how the user experience is, that's kind of how it comes off to people. You walk into a classroom, and if you're too uncomfortable, you're like, this isn't my type of class, and you walk away. We are essentially just bringing in some business models or some business processes that kind of brings in that user experience. And because we're focused on user experience, my teaching is much, much different, right? So I do a lot of mindset training just as much as I teach dance. So there's a lot of life lesson learning going on in the classroom just as much as it is dance, because in my mind, we're not here to technically everybody to be an amazing dancer, but we all are here to be to express ourselves and become better people.
And part of that is people seek that activity out because of the community aspect, right? And that's something that drives you and has probably driven you for a while now. And there's parts of that in teaching and academia too. But with the time that we have here, I do want to talk a bit about like how you built your company from the very beginning stages, when it became a good idea that like tech got involved. And I'm going to add another layer here is the continuing theme of unlearning, because last year with the pandemic, most businesses had to like not just unlearn but relearn, pivot, I don't know, dance, I don't know, like
everything.
Like customers were pivoting, right? Like it's like everyone was like chasing each other. And so, like how I want to hear about the whole story, but then how you like leaned into the pandemic and provided community and opportunity for people, you know, in ways that people might not have thought possible.
Yeah, totally. So there's so many levels there. The first one is how do we build it out? When we started the company, or not even when we started the company, but remember, I put it down for a while. I was doing the family thing, and I decided that I think working for myself and expanding on DanceSpire is the best route to go. So I realized that the Southwest Michigan or West Michigan business model or business market is much different than Chicago. So Tony Robbins doesn't work in this market. This market is about dance classes. They're about specialization, and they're about, you know, activities and community. So I knew that in order to do that, I would have to do event production. That was the business. I needed to have a dance class that brought many people. So for people who are watching this, who don't understand the dance industry, when you go to learn dance, it becomes, because of the expenses, it becomes elitist very, very quickly, where you have some communities who really enjoy it and who parents can afford it. And then you have a ton of communities who cannot. Right. And then on the other side of it, I've never said it in this way before, but it becomes ageism comes in, because once you graduate college, there's this message that you need to have a successful business or have a successful career. Dance is not looked at as a successful career. And also dancing on the weekend isn't necessarily translatable in conversations, right? So if your doctor said, hey, I play basketball on the weekends, that makes sense. We understand basketball is scalable, right? Dance, we don't see it that way. And so I have tried to develop a culture and community where we're redefining what it means to dance, right? And we have the opportunity for, regardless of your paychecks and regardless of your age, you have opportunity. So that was like the founding, like core of what we've done. And then we basically had a weekly dance class every single week, right? Just one dance class every single week at this same time. And the customer experience, we wanted to elevate it, right? And we wanted to make it the cheapest on the block, but make the experience the best on the block. And we did. So we built this out for 2 to 3 years. That expanded into other ideas, other cities, event production, but we were really just into event production. I had thoughts to go into, creating more content. We started a dance company in the sense of we have a performance group now. So we had event production, we added that, but we're still solely like event live space. That's where we are. And I was still spinning my wheels as far as capital and time, trying to leverage those to create the next version. It wasn't until the pandemic when that cut happened, where the governor said, shut everything down. That gave me the space to do that, right? So up until 3 years, we were really great at our events. We had built out a dance performance team, which was doing really well, performing many different places. And lastly, I didn't share this, but all of the content production processes for us became another model where we can bring in money by helping other clients, right? So this is the model we're in. Again, very heavy work intensive. During the pandemic, live streaming, I'm like, hey, we need to do this. Our promise has always been, we're going to have a class every single Wednesday. So she called it on a Sunday. I put out Facebook Sunday night, need some live stream people. Hey, what's up? Got a few recommendations. We got a guy onto our team Monday. He came over Tuesday. We pretty much ran through the whole process. Wednesday, we live streamed a class, and we did it every single week for the next 8 months. Immediately, because I have more time, I'm using all of my nighttime building out, learning about SaaS products, really studying the SaaS market, really studying what makes it great? What is it? Why is it beneficial? How do you roll one out? What makes it just really, really big into that, and studying all the big SaaS products, right? Studying the Netflixes, restudying Amazon, restudying Zuckerberg, and a lot of those different strategies they employ. So I went back to, this is actually funny, I may have told you this. I went back to a video from Zuckerberg in maybe 2012. Facebook had maybe 150,000 people on it. And the introduction of the teacher goes, here's a guy with this social networking thing. And so I went back to the early days, right? It's like watching Michael Jordan in college when nobody knows he's about to be Michael Jordan, So I'm doing this amount of studying, but I love that video because it's just so funny. Anyway, we get into live streaming, and I started to record all of our classes to then prepare for having tutorials for our online platform. By the time we hit August, September, we had a full online platform. We connected with a firm out of Macedonia, Europe. They're amazing. Uscreen is the platform. And they gave us all the tools and engineering that we needed to host an online dance studio. We've been running that for the last half a year now. We have a lot of metrics. It's about to go public March 1st. So we're going to start rolling out classes for all ages, all levels. And that was that trajectory. That's how we went through it. Very frustrating. I stayed up a lot of nights until 4 or 5 a.m. Not knowing where things, applying for funding, right? Which didn't come very much. Good thing that content production saved us. When the event stopped, the content production and the value we created with our different clients is the contracts that kept us going throughout the pandemic.
That's that's a great story. I'm glad it all works, because so many things, there's so many moments as entrepreneurs, we're like, man, if I didn't react that way, like what would have happened to my team? Or totally. If we didn't lean in on this way back then, what would have then, we always think about those things, right?
Yeah. I missed one really quick. I missed your tech comment. You asked about tech. How did that make us lean into it? So when we came back into person, there's two things as a person, right? As a owner of the business, I felt like, okay, we're going into 2021. What are the critical areas? And I came down to two of those. One was international relationships, knowing that globalization is coming, or is here, knowing that we have the ability to do business with many different people around the world. I wanted to build out that infrastructure and start to create relationships in some of the top performing economies, right? So China immediately came to mind, and a few other places. And then secondly, a big critical, mind you, I'm looking for things I don't know that I don't know. right? So I'm just guessing, right? So I'm like, all right, China seems like a good idea, right? International relationships, their economy is growing so fast. There's tons of predictions to prove it. And then secondly, I'm like, I need a better understanding of where we are in the tech industry, right? A better pulse on where we are with AI. And so it sends me into this deep dive. I'm looking at MBA programs. I'm looking at certificates. I'm on Harvard. I'm on Stanford. I'm putting on Facebook, hey guys, here's what I'm looking for, any feedback? And I get a lot of feedback. I ended up being on Harvard. I saw that they had a AI certificate program. The professors wrote a book. I happened to click the book. It's called Competing in the Age of AI. Um, and it's literally these professors who write a academia approach roadmap to how small businesses can respond to what's coming in the AI trends. It's like the perfect thing I was looking
That's
for.
like what you were looking for.
Exactly. It's like, bam, here it is, like, thank you, God, whoever you believe in, thank you for putting that right there. So I buy it immediately. I read it. I start doing, so mind you, at this point, I understand data just a little bit. Now I'm understanding the importance of data. I'm understanding data-informed business models. I'm understanding data-informed processes, which builds out weak AI, which then builds out a type of AI factory that gives you this wheelhouse to have a very extreme amount of growth with very little constraints compared to a traditional business model. In reading these things, my conversations are changing now. I'm looking at my industry and how do we become a small business who can compete at a national level and still drill these tech ideas into our business model. So I realized I had two issues. One, I'm a service-based business. How do you do this, right? Not many are doing that right now. And then secondly, I'm specifically dance. And our industry is definitely not doing these things, right? So I am gauging all of my peripheral weaknesses, right? And I'm like basically hedging against those, right? So I'm either deciding I'm gonna make this not a weakness, or here's what we're gonna do to overcompensate. Because we've done that, we've added to the team now. Our Orline platform is going to be live March. Again, we have over 100 end users right now. We have a half a year worth of data analytics that gives us a lot of understanding. We have a product roadmap where we want to get into wearable technologies. We want to get into management software. We even want to get into some I forget what the technology is called, but essentially it scales the ground. Think of sensor technology and heat mapping to help our industry become more accurate in the results that they're going for. So this is a foreign language to my industry for sure, but we're going to take our chances and educate, lead, and then implement as we go.
Now, the management aspect, you said it's a management platform. What is to what end?
Yeah, so again, my industry, and again, at least where I live at, right? I see a lot of the bigger names who live on the coast. They're starting to do some of these things, but I can still see the business strategy and the strategy is missing from what they're doing. Most of my industry, which is the dance industry, we have literally over I think it's 400,000 dance studios throughout the country. That doesn't count dance, performing arts institutions or anything. And they have maybe on average, let's just say 100 students, right? So we're talking about over 4 million dancers, right? In the country. They don't have online platforms, but as they find out, depending on however they do, they're going to need that. And that transition is going to be a huge gap for the industry. And we want to be able to provide management software once they do figure that out to say, here's how you're going to manage your in-person events and your online events more efficiently. And here's how we're doing it, right? So we're kind of doing this Tesla model where as we go, we're going to give you the blueprint and you just, go as you can use it if you want. Does it make sense? So that's the management software.
That's great, because those are things that that companies like they'll need to end up there, but not every company can afford to or knows how. So like they need some help and somebody who's doing it at scale so that it's affordable, and someone who's willing to share the knowledge and love
Yeah.
To make it work for everybody. That's really cool.
Which is the epitome of a SaaS product. So we're excited for that. That'll be coming. That management software, we'll have that done around August of this year. And then I'm excited to really get into the tech product part of this, which is late this year and early next year. So
sweet. Yeah, it's I'm excited to hear your take on data and leaning in on that, especially since it is such a physical like activity. Um, and I had a conversation with our chapter director in Dubai a few weeks ago, and coming like he's neighbors the Middle East there, so we're talking about what's the new oil, and people are like, data's the new oil, and he says,
Yeah,
no, data's the new soil. Like I was like,
I
wow,
love it. That's
like
cool. Bah!
it blew my mind. Data, the new soil. That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
Um, so now, uh, um, tell us, you told us a bit of your future roadmap here.
yeah,
Um, now, like how have things changed for you as far as like on the management level? So like it's one thing to talk about like, yeah, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm starting things and I'm growing things and I'm curious and I'm learning. And I run classes and I teach. Um, but it's very different to be like a boss and a leader.
yeah.
Um, so what's that like? And maybe for the entrepreneurs that might be in a neighboring space like yours, like how
Yeah.
do you hire? You know?
Yeah, for sure. So I want to hit a few things. So you brought up data, and that literally informs a lot of my leadership style and where I'm at right now, and kind of the struggles and the wins I have with it. So I'm going to start off with talking about data really quick, and the importance of how that works into a service-based business, and then tell you the constraints I'm dealing with now, and then go into hiring, how you just said, right? I'm going to revisit again. I'm sharing everything I know. So anybody who wants to correct me, who would love to add something to this, I would love to hear from you, right? Please reach out. So that being said, I'll give you an example that I read in the Competing in the Age of AI book. One of their biggest examples, they were trying to explain exactly how, not just talk about data, not just talk about AI, but exactly how are we at the point where every business needs a AI factory, right? A core where they're getting that data. And here's how. So it's the why and the how is in the different outcomes that a traditional and a AI informed business model, the results that they have, the difference in their outcomes. So a traditional business model, you have workers, you have managers, you have supervisors, and you have and then you have upper management, right? And that can scale, right? But that scales up to a T because it's only a certain amount of hours that a human can put in. It's only a certain amount of data that you can have, and you usually basically you ideate, you develop, and you experiment, and then you go to market, right? So that's a very costly process as well, right? Manufacturing and all these other things. When you have a AI centered company, it looks a little something like this. So here's the example. Alibaba by Jack Ma, which is over in China, they didn't have a centralized system to take payments, and so Alibaba created Alipay. So all of their customers went through Alipay. That financial data informed them to create Ant Financial. And the biggest thing about Ant Financial is that they serve about 10 times more than our biggest bank here in America, but they have about 90% less of the workforce. And so they're able to cater to 10 times as much customers with the 90% the expenses, right? And the only way they're able to do that is because the data is informing processes, right? User experience improvements, right? So if we have 20 customers reaching out asking, how do we contact you? Instead of having somebody who's working those numbers and trying to extract that information, they're able to have a data point that tells them to do that. And that's where, in the beginning, this traditional business model goes up and then it kind of tapers off. This software business model, it starts off slow because it takes a while for people to find you, but the exponential of it is much, much higher than the other. So I wanted to really share why data matters so much, especially to service-based and artistic-based businesses, right? Because we can believe that it's not going to affect us. And it's like, no, when the other guy figures out how to do it, you're going to be the America's biggest bank, and they're going to be Ant Financial, right? So then, how that transforms to me now as a leader right now, and how I'm dealing with things is that The constraints is it's actually fun because when I find a constraint, I'm like, all right, cool. Now I just need to find some type of data to extract from that to help me with this. So scheduling is a big issue right now that I'm like, I want that off my plate. I don't want to deal with tennis emails. How about 3 o'clock? How about 5? How about 7? How about 8? Like, no, we're done. Click the link, let's put it together, right? So scheduling is a huge thing. Actually, let me take a step back because this would be valuable, Corey. For people who just heard why and they're like, oh my God, how do I get started? Me and my barber just had this conversation. In my belief, I think the way that a service-based business or artistic-based businesses get started to build out some type of data-informed centers is that you list the key processes to your business, right? Doesn't matter who you are, what are those key things you have to do in order to produce that product? That's your key processes. Then you should list your redundant processes, the things that you're doing every day, but may not be as important. And those are the two lists I would encourage you to start looking at to find weak AI. And what that means is weak AI is one activity that a human used to do, but that now a computer does, right? So scheduling is not a key, maybe it's a key activity, but still it's a redundant activity for me. So I'm going to go find a Calendly, you use this. I'm going to go find the X.ai. I just put that out there if anybody want to go look that up. Very, very helpful program. And that's how you do it, right? You look at an activity and you're like, I'm so tired of doing this, but it's important. And you go find this, there's somebody out there with a software for it, right? And then you go hire them and that saves you time and it saves you money. And then you get that done, right? So that's where I am. I'm in this process of looking through those lists and checking them off one by one. We have scheduling. We just created a Google Workspace to streamline a lot of the ways we're saving things. We've developed an enterprise planning software where it takes all of the softwares because now we have so many. We have about 14. So how much are we paying for these? How much are we paying for Dropbox, Google, Calendly, Linktree, Uscreen, and all of these different platforms? How are we using them? How are we getting that money out of them? And so that's like the biggest part of my day nowadays, right now, Corey, is trying to keep the business going, but at the same time build out this whole new esoteric thing that I still don't understand a little bit, but I believe in it, right? And I think I'm going to win. I'm betting on it, so we'll see. And yeah, so now as far as hiring, it's really more so of it's really just, are you dedicated? Are you committed? And are you curious? Right? Everything else, like skill sets do matter to me. But I have some people on my team who don't know anything about AI, but they're dedicated, they're curious, and they're committed. Right? And we can build out processes to help them come into the team. So that's where I'm at. I think my biggest thing is curiosity.
Sure. That's I always like it when I hear people say that, just because the teams end up being so vibrant, and the projects, they sometimes end up in different places than expected.
Yeah.
But they're usually better for it.
Yeah, totally. I'm curious, Corey, really quick, based on what I shared, I'm curious on what stands out to you the most that you either think is helpful for yourself or maybe people who are watching.
Well, so, especially in our region. So in our region, we don't have the dense like tech ecosystem. So it's not like we have 200 people watching this that are all building the next app, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of lifestyle businesses. So it is like your barber. It's like my buddy who's like opening up a sandwich shop. It's that kind of stuff. You can scale those, but it's a lot different. And and so I think that those businesses, it's still like not in our like Midwest mindset that can help us, right? In all those little interactions. Like you tell a baker that they need to use Zapier, to make some zaps between, and they're like, what? I wake up at 4 a.m. and bake a cake. I sell it.
Yep.
I'm like, okay, great. So like, tech doesn't necessarily have to solve everything, but it can make a lot of things a lot easier. And so I was happy to hear you use that illustration for like, and now my barber wants to get started.
Yeah. So I want to add to that, Corey, just to make it very helpful for anybody who's from this area listening. Yes, the to me, and again, a lot of people are like tech or social media. I'm not the guy who will yell a keyword just because I think it's going to work. There's usually a reason behind it. And so for small business owners, for lifestyle businesses, for me, the key thing I think that one should always think about is, no, I don't think tech is going to solve all the issues. And no, I don't think every business necessarily needs a tech. There's only two things I want you to think about. The first one I've already illustrated. Somebody's going to be the end financial in your industry. And when they figure it out, you're going to have a hard time competing with them. So that's one reason. That's one. I think the second reason is, let's think about, especially since we went online, consumers can choose how they engage with you, right? So let's say right this moment, I have somebody who has texted me, called me, who has emailed me, who has Facebook me, who has Instagram me, who has Googled me, and they're all asking for their lead, right? How do I take 7 different people from 7 different platforms and bring them into my system? Otherwise, I'm gonna trying to keep up. This is what's happening in lifestyle businesses, and because they're doing this, they're believing that I don't have time for tech. When actually, it's really, hey, if you get a scheduling system or you get some type of like customer service, like a Zendesk or something, now you're able to kind of corral the cats to help save you a little bit more time and high blood pressure, honestly.
Right. And at the end of the day, you have more time with your son, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
All of those 20 different like apps that you're paying for on a monthly basis, that's maybe like an extra 15 minutes a day with your son.
Yeah, exactly. That's where you want to get it down to. That would be amazing I want to get to that point. Like I'm going to save that. And next time we meet, I'm going to give you the results.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Make data points, track it.
There we go.
Now we're coming up towards the end of our hour here, but I'm sure that you have a lot of entrepreneurs coming to you asking for advice. This is like the pandemic's not over. It won't be over for a long time. Especially these lifestyle businesses, we're not done losing them.
Yeah.
So we're at the middle of February of 2021. What's some of the most common advice that you're giving people?
Yeah, that's a good question. My biggest thing is, and this is what I do, is what I still do, but it's pertinent now. And the advice is, you have to start studying philosophy instead of practices. Because right now, especially like, I like to liken this. So one thing I'm really studying, Corey, for the last 3-4 days has been blockchain and cryptocurrency. Right? Like I've been really, really heavy into this space because again, I want to figure out what I don't know so I can make sure I have some good decisions planned out. And so right now there is a good portion of our country looking at delivery, pizza delivery or truck drivers. And we're maybe not saying it, but we're like, hey, that Tesla and Google is working on self-driving cars, right? Like I want you to figure that out, right? Sometimes we can see that and sometimes we don't. One of the ways we see that, and of course, this is a small group of people, but the technology around blockchain is really giving a scare to the financial industry as we know it. And I'll go ahead and say that I'm pretty sure that the way we see the financial system will not be the exact same way in another decade, for sure. And so with that being said, again, if you're looking at practices, you're going to always be outdated, outwitted. That's going to run its course. But if you're looking at philosophies, if you study a Corey Hart and say, okay, he did this was the practice. I want to figure out why he did that, right? What was the philosophy? If you go look at a Zuckerberg, if you go look at Elon, any rock star person you want to go study, definitely look at their practices, but then go look at why. And I'll give you a quick example of how we have done that. Elon, I love his work. His company around Tesla, the way that they have done the PR, right? It's not about becoming the best car maker out there. It's about being the driving force for everybody else to go electric. And so I see that's what he's doing, but I ask why. And in my mind, what that means is that he's not obsessed with the idea of being the biggest car maker. He probably doesn't even believe he's going to be that one. Maybe not. It looks like we're heading that way, but nevertheless,
he doesn't need to be. He's already like, more
Exactly. Right. He's like, I got rock ships to worry about. No biggie. You know what I mean? Just got to, space station. I'll be there,
like
Thursday.
100,000 cars a year and still be the biggest guy on the planet. Yeah.
Exactly. So, but I understand. So that's why he lets all his patents are open, right? And even if you look at, here's another thing. There's just so many. It all connects to me. Elon gave a speech at the United States Air Force. I don't know if it was an academy or a graduation. It's on YouTube. You can look it up. He was talking about this idea of America in comparison to China, and he talked about the idea where China numerically just has more people than we have, right? And he said economics, war is based off numbers, right? And so he talked about this idea where if you want to keep up with the big guy, right? Let's say we had a fight or a confrontation, there's 4 guys. The only way I know I can win this is I have to know something they don't know, right? That's the only way. Otherwise, if we're equals, 4 of them are going to surely take me out. I said that to say small business owners in West Michigan, service-based business owners, the only way for you to survive against somebody who's bigger than you is to out-innovate them. Right. And so that's the space. It's not about the practice. It's not about it's not about what they're innovating. It's about how and why they're doing that. So that's my biggest advice. That's my advice that will literally be relevant 5 to 10 years later. Right. I don't want to say, go get this platform, go get this software. I want to say, pick somebody you like to study them and study their philosophies and not their practices.
That's awesome. That's really good advice. I like reminding small firms that because they're small, they can innovate so much faster.
Yes.
Than the big people.
Oh yes.
Just because also they don't have like that drag of like, oh well, this is how we've always done it. There's always some boring dude at a table.
Yep.
Like, well, this is how we've always done it.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. Anyway, so last question for you.
Okay.
What can our local entrepreneurial community do for you? And what can the global startup grind community do for you? What are you looking for? What do you need?
Yeah, so I think that's a really great question. What can the local economy do for me is give awareness to the work that we're doing, like share it with a friend. If you have a kid or you have a friend's kid who's interested in dance, please reach out. So sales is one totally. A second one is collaboration around software. So if we have some engineers out there and we have some fellow entrepreneurs who are looking to be in the tech space, are in the tech space, maybe you're ahead of the game when it's compared to me, or maybe you're before the game. Mentors is the other part. I'm always looking for that, right? So I think sales, mentorship, and just like minds, those are the 3 things that I'm looking for sure. Everything else I think will come because I'm gonna make it happen. I'm gonna wake up early and go to sleep late to make it happen. But I think those are the 3 things that everybody needs. I think for the global community, same, man. I would love some, so this is funny. I just had a conversation with Gary Vaynerchuk's head of content. And because she's into dance as well. So we had a conversation this past weekend, and it was so much fun talking to somebody else who loved dance, who's into marketing, and who's into entrepreneurship, and who understands tech. And I was like, oh my God, like, why aren't we just best friends? You know what I mean? But it was a business meeting, so I couldn't say that. But anyway, so people who are like-minded, mentors who have who understand capital, who can, and her job literally on the phone was to poke holes in my strategy.
Sure, yeah.
She did a great job and I loved it. And so that gave me a lot. I was bleeding walking away. It was a little limpy, but we're doing it. So yeah, sales, mentorship, like-minded.
And how do people find you?
People can find me, Deavondre. You can search that on any platform. My email is deavondrejones@gmail. If you want to look up DANCESPIRE and the work that we do, that's dancespire.com. That's DANCESPIRE on Google, Facebook, YouTube, everything. You can just Google it. It'll pop up. DANCESPIRE.
Sweet. Well, so grateful for the generosity of your time.
Yeah.
I know you're a busy guy.
Thanks, man. You too. Hey, I have a question for you, if you don't mind. Before we go, we got 3 minutes. Let's make it happen. I'm curious on what do you get out of interviewing entrepreneurs? Obviously, you know, it's a part of your work, but I'm just curious on what do you get out of these interviews when you're doing it with different people in the local chapter?
I'm doing my best to build community here. I think that our area or our mindset in the Midwest is we have a lot of like, no, I got this mentality.
Mhm.
We're also not very good at wearing our failures on our sleeves, and that prevents us from reaching out for help, or if we have a new idea, to be excited about it because we're so busy punching ourselves in the face for our failures. So I really just want to build community and bring people together.
Yeah.
And then in doing that, I just it fills me up to learn about people's experiences and their stories. And it helps inform, you know, how I'm going to wake up tomorrow. You know,
Nice.
and I already now I have 3 people that I'm going to be recommending this book about AI to. So, you know, like,
Hey, I'll send you the link. So last question for me is that we've had private conversations a lot, right? Corey, for those of you who don't know, I meet with Corey once every month or every other week to kind of just talk through some business ideas. Corey, you've talked to me privately before. On this call, I'm curious on, is there anything new that you learned about me, or maybe it was reaffirming, or maybe you saw a different perspective or a deeper perspective on the work on our relationship?
Oh, well, I'm grateful to have had the opportunity today to really get to have a deeper insight into the why you are,
Yeah,
and spend more time on where you come from.
yeah,
That helps inform, you know, where you're headed, uh, because you know, with the limited time that sometimes that we often have in other things, we're kind of more like it's kind of, it tends to be transactional, and
yep.
unfortunately in this online space, if we were doing this like over like a lunch or a like afternoon coffee or something, you know, that somehow that the other things, the other textures come in and the context come in where it's not as easy to do, or maybe I'm not as good at making it happen online. So
Yeah, yeah. No, I get that. That makes sense. Thanks for
uh,
sharing, man.
so yeah, anything else?
No, that was it, man. I think you did a great job. I really, really enjoyed my time. Hopefully this was very valuable for other people. I like to share a lot of my wins and losses. So if you want to follow me, you can do that too. And Corey knows that I'll be banging at his door consistently still. So yeah, man.
Yeah, there's a this new, it's not a new trend, but it's on fire now. It's called like building in public.
Ah,
Like just Google that.
I'm gonna Google that. Interesting.
That's
Okay.
like when you're asking for people to help inform what you're doing, one of the
Yeah.
best ways to get attention is to like be pretty raw about what it is you're building and as you're doing it. And other people will be like, oh, well, I can help review that, or I know
Yeah.
at least, or I know someone who's dealing with this small, minute problem of whatever, you know. So there's a gentleman, uh, Kevon Chung. He's on my
Okay.
LinkedIn, and he actually just wrote 10,000 words on building in public and what
Wow.
it meant for his last venture. So anyway,
Nice.
there we go.
Thank you for that, man. Thank you. I appreciate that.
That's just he just published it like a few days ago. So uh,
Yeah.
well, let's connect again soon. And
Okay.
again, thanks so much for spending time.
Thank you, man. Talk soon.
Have a great night. Bye.
Bye.